Hello and welcome, and thank you everyone, coaches of District 2 for being here. Linda Worthman, our club growth director, and our special guest speaker today, Paige Olsen. Today, I'm using a red slide deck, which you may be wondering why is it not blue, and it's because this is the Leadership Excellence series. So this is not the club success series, and I hope that this is a relevant presentation on resolving conflict. Okay, this is what we have right now in our little tiny clubs that are struggling. Conflict is what you get when two or more people have differences, real or perceived, that is not resolved. This happens every day, all the time. You can have a conflict with a paper sack at the grocery store where the paper sack may fail you. You might want to double bag it next time when you're putting, a gallon of milk in your bag. Conflict resolution is double bagging it. It's what we do to identify and address the conflict in a mature and respectful way. There are lots of different types of conflict. There are contentious personalities, which I'll go over a lot more in detail later. There can be just simple misunderstandings. In Toastmasters, we're practicing communication. It means we probably aren't very good at communicating our thoughts. And so we just need to give each other a little benefit of the doubt because misunderstandings happen all the time. It could be an actual issue, maybe with the club, maybe a issue with their personal life. And then there can be issues with styles of leadership. We all have different ways that we go about dealing with situations, and sometimes different styles of leadership just clash. But there are methods to help you resolve conflicts in your club. One method, which I don't necessarily recommend, though I have used and it has been helpful to me, is to just ignore it. You can try and smooth over the conflict. You can force a resolution, compromise. You can collaborate to try and find a resolution. But essentially, you need to facilitate collaboration. And to do that, you need to find out why you're having this conflict. What is the conflict? What is it about? And then you need to allow everyone to be able to speak who's involved in the conflict. Everyone needs to be seen and heard and feel validated in their perspective, because their perspective is valid, whether you agree with it or not. But here's a word of caution. Emotions run very high in these situations. So I hope to give you a few tips and tricks on how to not allow emotions to take over in these situations that can be very emotional. You want to just be empathetic to the person and try and connect with them and hear what they have to say. And don't point a finger. Everyone is involved in the situation. So we all have a part to play. So it's not about what you are doing. Talk about what, how you are feeling. Don't talk about whose fault it is. Just talk about what is yours in these situations. You also want to encourage listening. In general, as a coach, you're probably going to want to be doing more listening than you are talking in these situations. But sometimes you have to speak up. Identify areas of the disagreements. Identify the areas of agreements. Search for solutions. Reach a consensus. And these are brainstorming methods, essentially. It's a pro-con, it's a cost-benefit analysis. Paige brought a whiteboard here It's things like that you can do to show people what we're talking about. So there's a way to see it that they're not connected to. And once you have a good list of ideas, then you can narrow it as a group and make a good decision. The conclusion of this presentation is that a leader must resolve conflict. And that's great and all, but I just feel like this barely touched on what we need to do. And so I dug a little deeper and I found a presentation, actually an article called Dealing with Challenging Personalities. And it's from a Toastmaster magazine article that was published in May 2018 by Maureen Zappala. And I highly recommend, a lot of her articles are just great. But I felt like this one was particularly apropos to our situations as coaches because we can't choose who's in our club. But what we can do is come in with an attitude of a kind confrontation if there is someone difficult, right? We don't take it personally. It's not about you. This is about the club getting better. And realize that this person has a history. They're here for a reason. They have their own reasons for why these certain conflicts are triggering for them. And then try to control what you can, which is your own emotions. And ETC is a way that you can sort of break down these situations in the moment. It's emotion, truth, choice. So emotion is, what am I feeling physically? What am I saying about myself? What's my self-talk? Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I tired? What's my emotion? And then what's the truth of the situation? Let's reframe it. What's true in the moment? And then what choices do I have? And what would I truly do? Like, what's not just what this person wants to hear? What is something that I could do for this person that would help them? But we're dealing with maddening members here. And there are 7 main archetypes. And as I read these, you may find that you fall in several of these, as I do. The overtalker. Me and you, we can just go on for hours. And we'll even talk over each other. It's a problem. You need to put time limits on things. This is why Toastmasters has rules, okay? There's the recruiter. It's the person who just wants to sell you something, or they want you to join some other list, or they have something they want to evangelize or proselytize at every meeting. And that's fine, but just make sure that there's a time and a place for that before and after meetings, not during meetings. There's the Googler. I can definitely fall into this, or the know-it-all. The Toastmasters evangelist who has all the facts and figures. And if you mess up something, they will tell you that you messed up that little thing that you did. And this can be great. Sometimes people just want to be heard and seen, but also you need to keep this person under control. Like, this person can create a lot of fear and anxiety with new members because they're holding people to a very high standard. So just watch out for this person because they can cause unseen problems. Then we have the person that's sort of obvious, the high conflict, toxic team member. They may be very passionate, a long-standing member of the club, but they also, it's their way or the highway. And this type of behavior can just destroy clubs. So it needs to be dealt with right away. There are strategies to deal with it that I gave you in the resolving conflict, doing facilitation and things like that. Holding moments of truth, I think, is a way to do that. Just having one-on-one conversations and building trust is a good way. the latecomer, the one who shows up 10 minutes late to every Toastmasters meeting and wants a quick recap to make it about them for a few minutes. With the latecomer, the strategy there is to just make sure that you keep it brief, acknowledge people when they arrive, but just limit them. The gossiper, we can all do this as coaches. We all want to talk about all the people in our club that are driving us crazy. But when we hear gossip, we need to just shut it down and not contribute to it, or just let people talk, because really what you're there as a coach, it's not to add to the drama. You're there to try and find the truth and see through the gossip. And then this one I can really relate to, the eccentric club member, the one who's just strange, but not really a problem, but kind of puts people off maybe because they're not really like falling into societal norms. They might act different than other people, talk about topics that are different than most people do. I definitely find myself falling into this bucket sometimes. So I have to watch myself of what topics I talk about. In conclusion, maddening people are going to be around us all the time. It's just a fact of life. But a little consideration, a little thought for others makes all the difference. Do you know what this quote is from? Winnie the Pooh. So take a lesson from good old Winnie and just be kind, and you'll get through it. It's all going to be okay. I do have a little quick exercise I'd like to do with somebody. If anyone is brave and would like to be my guinea pig. Linda Eastlick, you are my guinea pig. Okay, think of somebody, Linda, you're going to have to come off mute because we're going to talk. Think of somebody that you have a conflict with. It can be any person you want. What should we call this person? It doesn't have to be their actual name, but what should we call them for this dialogue? We can call them their name too. Joe? Okay, Joe. Okay, is Joe somebody that you meet virtually with?
This is a past conflict, but yes, this was someone I had conflict with.
On a virtual level, or was it an in-person meeting when you were
It
meeting
was
together?
in person.
In person, okay. So step one, let's go from your perspective, okay? Position one, this is you. What do you see when you look at Joe? What do you see from your perspective? Tell us what you see?
I specifically physical or just?
Yeah, you can describe him physically if you want, or just, about him as a person. Just describe him to us. What do you think about when you're looking at Joe?
What I think about is someone who says what is what's going to be accepted in the moment without any intent to actually follow through on that, and then change things at the last moment when there's really not an opportunity to have a conversation about how could we do this differently.
Okay, so you've had some broken trust is what
yes.
Okay, so you're seeing a person who doesn't have your trust, who's broken your trust.
Correct.
Okay.
And then discounts my own experience when I express that I have a concern because of this, and then I'm just it's whitewashed. It's, oh, don't worry about it. Well, I am worrying about it because I have responsibility here.
Got it. Okay, so you're almost going into step two. Okay, so shake off you. You are Joe. Sit like Joe. Try and embody Joe for a minute. Get in Joe's head. You're Joe. I'm Joe now. Now look at Linda as Joe and tell me what you see. What do you see?
I'm not sure what she's worked up about. It's everything's good. It's going to happen. It's not life altering. So why is there so much stress happening around this? Whatever will be, will be. It will happen.
Do you think Joe trusts you? Does
No.
Joe trust? No. Why not?
Because Joe does not have the willingness to express preferences. Express when he doesn't agree with something, when he's going to go this direction, when I am led to understand that he's agreed to go this direction.
Do you think Joe does that on purpose?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay. So you think Joe's manipulative? He's trying to manipulate you?
I think Joe's an avoidance.
Okay.
Doesn't know what will work and just knows that the role that he agreed to at the outset isn't the role that he wants to do, and doesn't know how to say, I'm not willing to do that, or it needs to save face. I'm not sure of the rationale behind it, but it just isn't willing to address that.
Okay. All right. Now shake off Joe. Might not have been fun. Now let's do the narrator, somebody from the outside. Now that you've been yourself, you've been Joe, what does a third party see here during this conversation?
I think the third party would see my emotions getting unreasonable.
Okay. So you're passionate and you're getting
I'm sorry,
worked
what's
up.
that?
You're passionate and getting worked up.
Yes.
Okay.
And until recently, didn't necessarily have the wherewithal to rein that in to maybe get different results.
Mm-hmm.
That both sides have a way that they want to see this pan out.
Mm-hmm.
And both sides are challenged to talk about what it is that they as an individual want to see, and have a willingness to hear what the other person would like to see happen.
All
And
right.
I'd say there are some cultural differences as well
Okay.
that
That's a good observation. Yeah. Well, and you also touched on this a little bit. You pointed out a few of you observations after you went through this. You know, you said, then I might not have been able to hold my emotions in, but I've learned and grown since then, you know, and may be better now with Joe. What are some other things that you have learned from this little exercise? Anything else? It doesn't have to be anything huge.
Earth shattering.
No, it doesn't have to be earth shattering. Just what do you think now when you think of Joe?
I still, it's he's got a personality that I find challenging still to work with.
Oh yeah.
Because I find it difficult to work with someone who's not willing to say to my face what's happening. Mm-hmm. Though I also have a challenge saying what's up for me to someone's face, because I don't like bringing bad news to the table.
Nobody does.
And I have the perception that it's bad news when I have discovered in recent times that sometimes the other person so much wants me to do it differently. And when I agree, when I say up front that I'm going to do it differently, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. So
So I don't
next
know if
time,
that-
would you maybe follow up more with Joe, or would you have a different strategy with him, knowing that he's this way?
I would have a different strategy in just saying, I feel like I'm being disregarded and I don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I tried many different
Yeah.
ways. I tried involving a conflict resolution person. I tried involving someone of the same culture. I tried many different ways to navigate the challenges that I was having. And I didn't feel good about it when all was said and done. I was glad I was done with it.
All right. Well, thank you for being my guinea pig. I know we're taking a little bit more time, but I think that this is a really good way to sort of take yourself through the 4 positions when you're dealing with somebody that is challenging with you, and really take that time, that maybe 10 minutes, to be thoughtful and maybe gain a little bit of perspective. And if you ever want to work on this with me, I'm happy to work on this exercise with any of you anytime I do this with challenging people at work. So I hope that this is helpful to you. But now I want to give our time to our guest, Paige Olsen, who joined Toastmasters in November 2016, and she already got her DTM in June 2020. Congratulations, that's so quick. Over her time at Toastmasters, she's held many officer roles, including president, district area director, and VP of education. She spent 3 consecutive years as vice president of education of one club to provide consistency as they transitioned to Pathways educational program. Good job. She has worked with corporate clubs and coached from struggling to president's distinguished. At this time, she's a member of 4 clubs. Professionally, Paige has developed and teaches a public speaking curriculum that emphasizes speaking to understand. In 2021, she became the director of public speaking for an international company that teaches students writing and public speaking. One of her passions is working with horses. She's spent the last 25 plus years working with and rescuing emotionally traumatized horses, learning her second language along the way, the language of the horse, known as equus. Welcome, Paige Olsen, DTM.
Let me ask you guys, I've been hearing words. And when I think about what's happened in the first half an hour of this meeting, I can sum it up in one word, words. And it reminds me, I don't know, how many of you ever bothered to go to YouTube and listen to past international speech, first, second, and third places? Anybody go and listen to them? I actually use them. They're wonderful. But in 2015, the first place winner was a gentleman by the name of Mohammed Quintani. And he had a speech called, I see Karen going, yep, the power of words. And he has a phrase he uses in it. Words are power, words have power. And I believe that in the roles that you have taken on, and for all of us in Toastmasters, if we can remember that, words are so powerful. They can damage and they can lift up. And so what I want to share with you is some things that I learned from my coaching journey. But before I get there, we call it coaching. Toastmasters has decided this role that you have raised your hand to say, I'm going to do this, is called coaching. But I want to know, what does that word mean to you? Because all the words we use have a backstory for us and a way that we act and we behave, the way we speak and the way we present ourselves. What I want to know from some of you who are willing to share is, when you say I'm a coach, what does that mean to you? The way you how do you speak to people? What do you think is expected of you? Who would like to just kind of, that's why I was trying to do the whiteboard, as I could just write down, how do you view that word? in your role right now? Anybody brave enough? Marty.
Support from another.
So when I think of coaching, I describe it as a bi-directional exchange where I may have skills, abilities, and expertise that I share, but I anticipate that you also will have that. And my goal is to take from you, to have you take from me, and to share as broadly as possible, obviously within the club, but I'm not going to promise to keep the sharing to the club. That's how I describe my role.
Great, Marty. Thank you. Anybody else? Bob, did you want to share? I thought I saw you kind of thinking about it. I'm gonna ding you.
I think it's encouraging, sharing experiences. I had that with a couple new members last night. Club, sharing with them that everything you're going to come in that's new. All of us have done it for the first time. Not looking from up top, but within, and giving people the courage to try different things, to step out, and to encourage that, and giving hope that when the club is small, it can be large again. You know, of the messages, you were 20 one time, you had to be to charter a club. So there's a possibility, and shining light in there, kind of leading the way, not doing the work, but encouraging people to do the work. That's how I see it as a coach.
Thank you, Bob. All right, now I'm going to switch for a minute because we all know that there are also mentors in Toastmasters. That first 6 months of a new club, we call those people mentors. So when we think of a mentor rather than a coach, what might be your mind frame, somebody that hasn't shared yet, when you think of yourself as a mentor? What's your mind frame, the way you act? Anybody? Linda? I'm gonna kid you.
I just had a feeling you were going to call on me.
I was looking right at you. No.
It is, to me, being a mentor, I have less distinguishing characteristics between the two roles, but being a mentor for a new club, as an example, people who are starting that club have presumably not been in a club before, which means that they need stronger guidance. They need the how-to. And then I'm there as a resource for them to begin implementing that how-to, and I walk them through that process. And that's what I would say.
And thank you, Linda. And that's exactly what I want to get to. If you go to the dictionary and you look up coach and look at mentor, and I'm not dissing Toastmaster right now, but when I went into being a coach, I said they're reversed. They're absolutely reversed, because a new club needs more how-to, needs your guidance. And a coach is, let me take you through the structure of how to do something, where a mentor listens first and then tries to ask questions to help you figure out how you can resolve your problems, with maybe giving you a little bit of guidance. So I wanted to start out with that mindset of sometimes we get trapped by the word or that we're carrying that label. I hate labels. Sorry. I don't use hate very often, but I feel so strongly about it. I hate labels. And because the label traps us. I loved what Bob said, because he has the gray area, right? And even Marty, it's a gray area. So I love that your mindsets, from what I'm hearing, are a gray area. And I happen to know Roxanne, so it's a gray area, and Karen as well. You are working in this gray area. You need to do a boundary between being a coach and being a mentor, and knowing when to do which we're not perfect at. But I wanted to help you understand that sometimes words and labels capture us in a mindset, and we have to fight that. And so I would present to you, if you can get rid of the label and give yourself another name or something, it might be of help. And it really helped me. I came into being a coach not because I was going to go, I want my DTM, I'm going to do this stuff. It was like, oh, you know, Roxy twisted my arm, my shoulder hurt. I said, okay, I'll be an area director. Okay, but you got to give me, and she gave me corporate clubs, or sort of kind of corporate clubs that functioned as corporate clubs, but maybe were not completely closed, as well as corporate clubs. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll do this. And one of the clubs was in disarray. It was, so as area director, I went and visited, and they were like in some small room, and their stuff was kind of here and there. They didn't even know why they existed, except for it's Toastmasters, yay. And, you know, we've been around for forever. There were some experienced Toastmasters. There were some new Toastmasters. They'd started when I was an area director. At that time, it was still the legacy program, but they were just kind of helter-skelter. Nobody really understood anything, but they were stuck, and they didn't want the outside world to come in and tell them what to do. And the problem with a coach is that word brings with it, you're going to tell me what to do. And that's why I like to get rid of it. So as an area director, I had the district trio going, you know, you need to get him a coach. You need to get him a coach. They're between 8 and 12. You need to get him a coach. And I'm like, you need to breathe. I was telling the trio, you need to breathe. Just take a deep breath, because they don't want a coach right now, because they don't want it shoved down their throat. And then the other thing that I realized over time is they were only willing to accept a coach when they could trust that that person wasn't going to come in and tell them what to do and how to do it, and to be the perfect Toastmaster, whatever that is, because I've never met one yet, right? So they didn't want that. And I just kind of was present. And so the first thing I did is I listened, and because we were in person, I looked. But even in a room like this, I look at body language. You know, like I said, I called on Linda and I called on Bob because I saw something, and I'm like, you know, I look at body language, I read, and I hate to say it, guys, but the horses taught me how to really key in on body language. It's one of the things, hey, Karen, one of the things that they've taught me is body language, plus having kids of my own. Matter of fact, my international speech that I gave some years ago, that one time, again, Roxy and Todd cut it back, and Jackie Bailey kind of said, you will. And I was like, no, I'm not. Yes, you will. It was on behavior as a messenger. I've been a student of that. And so even online, I watch, you know, who's stiff, who's back, who's, you know, down, who's barely being seen. What is that telling me? So I listen to that, whether I'm in the room or whether I am, you know, alive in a room or online in a room. So that's what I first did, is I listened and I looked, and I learned, like I said, they weren't against having a coach or help. They were against being forced to have somebody come in that they didn't believe was going to understand them, wasn't going to take the time to understand them. And towards the end of my area director year, I said, hey, if you're interested, I have gotten permission, and I can be designated for you to be your coach. As a matter of fact, at that time, they were trying to get all these people to finish. It was 2019, going on 2020, and get everybody finished. And they wanted to give a second person to that club. And that club said, if you do that, we're done. And and it was because they needed to know and trust that that person wasn't going to come in and force, as I said, force Toastmasters down their throat. It wasn't that they weren't doing Toastmasters. They just didn't want somebody to come in and say, this is the only way to do it. So that was it wasn't a real eye-opener for me, because the club Roxy talked about, if you guys were there at one of the last DECOM, she said, yes, this one club I had where I had learned from, I think it was Omar, you have to let the club do their thing and not say anything. That was my club, and I was president at the time of that club that she was talking about. It's like, okay, so to respect and to listen. So listen and look were the first two things. Next is I asked. Even before I became their coach, I asked. I would ask questions like, why are you meeting in this room? I mean, I've asked my clubs too, is why do we meet at this time? Why are we meeting at this restaurant? Why are we meeting at this in this room? I asked a lot of my favorite word. I love that 3-letter word, why. My favorite word. I'm an investigator by nature and background, professional background. So I love the word. But what it does is it forces the people in the room to think. Instead of taking stuff for granted, they're thinking about, okay, so why are we meeting here? And if we don't meet here, what can change? I got the club to stop meeting in a building on the edge of the Boeing campus and move to the middle of the campus, right near the lunch room. And guess what? It was a lunchtime meeting. And hey, we could eat during a Toastmaster meeting. That would be okay. Dinner time, lunchtime, online, you can, not online, you could eat. And just these ideas of, oh, we can. It's like sometimes they don't even know the question to ask. So one of the things we can do as coaches and mentors, whatever you want to call yourself, is to help them ask the question they don't even have enough information to know to ask. And the idea of, and so then they got this big room. All of a sudden it was like, oh, we can do hybrid meetings, telecommunication stuff. And they got a room where, and it worked really well for them because again, it's Boeing. And so it worked really well for them. They got a room right near a luncheonette, you know, right upstairs from the big lunch room, nice big room. And all of a sudden, guess what happened? We had an open house with 60 people. And it wasn't because I did anything. It was because I helped them see, ask the questions and realize, give something a chance, a try, that where they were meeting wasn't helpful. And I had a second club that I was area director of at that same time. It was the same problem. And yet for some reason, they weren't processing the fact that being hidden or whatever, a difficult time, you don't send out the Zoom link or whatever you're meeting on every week. You're expecting people to save it. Dumb work. You always send that Zoom out every single week. It's the same thing with this have a sign. So it was very interesting, very rapidly, because it became easy and convenient. Oh, I could eat my lunch. And oh, that's really cool. They came and they had these huge open houses. That was, so I listened, I looked, and then I asked these questions. And then once people started coming and trying to decide, the last thing I asked was, why do you exist? I know. Why am I asking a Toastmasters club, why do you exist? I mean, come on, right? Toastmasters is where leaders are made, right? Hate to tell you this. There was a survey done by Toastmasters in 2019, and over 69% of the people that asked why you're in Toastmasters, it was learn how to speak better. Toastmasters has a second motto that's older, that is still active, that you can find on their website, and there's, I think it's in WOW or something. Find your voice. Find your voice where leaders are made. Some clubs, and I'm in some of them, find your voice is our motto. Not where leaders are made. They find their voice and then they go to a different club where leaders are made. They find their voice and then they go to advanced club where leaders are made. By asking them, why do you exist? Why do you meet on this campus at this time on this day? Why do you want to be joint, not just all just Boeing, but have outside people come in? By being able to address and understand the purpose, the why. Simon Sinek, I don't know if you guys know Simon Sinek at all. I love Simon Sinek. I worship Simon Sinek. I just, know your why. Not what you do, not how you do it. I mean, you need that, but know why. And for every single club and every club, I know, why do you exist? Because every time the club tries to do something new or something different, it should be bounced off of that why and asked, is that working for this club? Or should we invite them to try a different club because of what that club does or how they do it differently? The idea I found is not to get everybody in your club, is to get everybody to come to Toastmasters to learn how to speak better. And that's the first step to becoming better leaders. Oh, wait a minute. Better speaking, better leaders. Now it makes sense. So that's look and listen, help them ask the questions they don't even know how to ask or that they need to ask. Then help them ask why. And I found when I got why, I got pathways. Came right up in there. I don't focus on DCP points. I don't focus on pathways, because if the person knows why they're in Toastmasters, I can help them figure out how to make the pathways project work for their work, for their this, for their that. I can help them rather than say, here's pathways, do it this way. I can say, well, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation with our VP. Let me help you see how Toastmasters isn't separate from, it is continuing education for, and I don't care if you're corporate or not, it's continuing education for. So what do you need it for? Why are you here? Now let me help you with these different projects and how to do them to support what you're trying to accomplish. Again, the Simon Sinek way, come backwards. Why, how, what? Just remember, words, that's where the power is, and how we, as whatever you call yourself. I like to call myself a guide, which means I can oscillate between coach and mentor. I'm here to guide you. And I found that that worked really well with the club that I was having. And just to give you follow up, that particular club, Wing Talkers, they got presidents distinguished and they did really well until the airplane started crashing. And until COVID, that campus now not only has been closed, shut up, and sold, but that club, while struggling, and while members of that club have moved as far away as Texas, they are still meeting online. They are still struggling to survive. I've actually rejoined them, and I just got an email from them because I reintroduced why, and now they have an idea of how they're going to move forward, because they understand why they exist.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Paige. Everyone, I hope you really enjoyed Paige's talk as much as I did. I want to thank you for coming, and we are going to now do a round of Q&A for the next 10 minutes, but we don't need to record that. So Linda, if you want to